Hey everybody, this is Zachary Jeans. Let's keep walking through the Bible. So today is day 385, and we are working our way through the book of Numbers, through the Pentateuch, as you know, first 5 books of the Bible. And we are working our way through the whole of the Old Testament now, having done the New Testament last year. So today we're going to be looking at chapter 30 through 34, Lord willing. And I always say Lord willing, my best of intentions. And it's quite a bit of text, but there are some sections we'll be skipping over. I want to encourage you right now to go ahead and hit pause after we pray and take the time to go ahead and just kind of read over the text, even if you just skim it, just so that you're familiar with the parts which we're going to read over and the parts which we're going to pass over, just for the sake of reading out a list of names. We'll talk about what those names mean, those places, but we aren't going to read out, a list of, here's the border of this and here's the border of that. And they went from this place to this place to this place and to that place. But we'll talk about the importance of those things. So we'll say thank you. Thanks for loving. Thanks for liking. Thanks for passing me on to others. Continue to please pray for me. If you do want to support me, I do have a couple people that continue to support and just, give to what I'm doing here. And I appreciate you. You can always do that at Ko-Fi. So ko-fi.com and then the / in Zachary Jeans. And you can buy me a cup of coffee or support me on a monthly. And everything here will always be free. Okay. It's just if you want to just sort of financially say, hey, keep doing that. I always blessed by you. So why don't we stop? Why don't we pray? And then if you need to, hit pause and go ahead and read through the text. All right. Lord, I love you. God, please bless this time. Please bless your word. God, thank you for your word. God, thank you for those that are taking time to get in your word right now. Lord, we love you. God, thank you for all that you've done in our lives to be patient with us as we've wandered around. As we have been both obedient and disobedient to you. God, please have mercy on us. We are frail and weak, broken things, Lord. And you empower us. You empower us, Lord. Change what my heart wants, and you empower me to go after you and it. Lord, good stuff. And that's from you. It's not me. So, Lord, please bless your word. Please bless these that are taking time to get in your word. Please bless their time skimming over or reading the text. And please, Lord, open it up for me to share what you want said. Lord, I love you, and it's in your name I pray, Jesus. Amen. All right. Well, I trust that if you're going to hit pause, you're going to hit pause and come on back. We are going to pick it up here in chapter 31. Now, all of this time, this whole buildup has been for the vengeance. It is the vengeance on Midian. All of these tribes, all these families, well, the vast majority of them have some relation to one another. Some of them were there when Abraham walked in, obviously. There were existing peoples, but there are descendants of Abraham through his other wives and concubines, and also then through the various children that had kids like Isaac and Jacob and their relations, and obedient kids and less obedient kids. So the Midianites are a descendant in relationship to them, and Moses' father-in-law was a Midianite, but the people by and large were in rebellion against God, and Balak the king had asked the prophet Balaam to come curse him. And of course, we read the story, we talked about it at length. Balaam has kind of a mixed story there where he's both being obedient and disobedient at the same time. He's trying to walk the line, right? He's trying to get something out of the deal, and at the same time he does know that God's not mocked, and And he nearly gets himself killed by the angel of the Lord, right? But his donkey speaks up, and the Lord opens the mouth of his burrow, and he's riding there. And anyway, long story short, we find out from Peter, and we'll find out in this passage, that Balaam was working a side hustle. And he wasn't cursing the children of Israel, but he was sort of letting them know how to get them to go sideways and go against God. And we saw a bit of that. We saw some of the zeal of Phinehas, right? The son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, the high priest, that went and dealt with somebody who was just a couple leaders of families, or children of leaders of families, that were sort of flaunting their relationship in front of everyone. And this is in spite of the Lord saying, no, I'm sending you in, and I want you to take them out because they are guilty of a bunch of crimes as a group. So, all right. So chapter 31, verse 1. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, avenge the people of Israel on the Midianites. Afterward, you shall be gathered to your people. So, Moses, this is your last role. This is it. So Moses spoke to the people, saying, arm men from among you for the war, that they may go against Midian to execute the Lord's vengeance on Midian. You shall send 1,000 from each of the tribes of Israel to war. So there were provided out of the thousands of Israel 1,000 from each tribe, 12,000 armed for war. And Moses sent them to war, 1,000 from each tribe, together with Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the priest, with the vessels of the sanctuary and the trumpets for the alarm in his hand. They warred against Midian, as the Lord commanded Moses, and killed every male. They killed the kings of Midian with the rest of their slain. And there's a list of the names there. There are 5 kings. And they also killed Balaam, the son of Beor, with a sword. So they killed a prophet, right? It's kind of funny. Like, he thought he was going to slide by here, right? And the people of Israel took captive the women of Midian and their little ones, and they took as plunder all their cattle and flocks and all their goods, all their cities and the places where they lived, and all their encampments they burned with fire, and took the spoil and all the plunder, both of man and beast. They totally took all the possessions. They wiped out all the fighting men, and then they brought the rest of the captives and plunder and spoiled to Moses, Eleazar the priest, to congregation of the people of Israel, the camp. They brought it out to the camp there where they were staying on the plains of Moab by the Jordan. That's the Jordan River at Jericho. So Moses and Eleazar the priest and all the chiefs of the congregation went to meet them outside the camp. Moses was angry. He's angry after they decided this victory, right? He's angry with the officers of the army, the commanders of the thousands, the commanders of hundreds who had come from service in the war. Moses said to him, have you let all the women live? Behold, these, on Balaam's advice, caused the people of Israel to act treacherously against the Lord in the incident of Peor. And so the plague, remember that plague? 24,000 people dropped dead in Israel. So the plague came among the congregation of the Lord. Now therefore, kill every male among the little ones, kill every woman who has known man by lying with him. But all the young girls who have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves, and camp outside the camp 7 days. Whoever of you has killed any person, whoever has touched any slain, purify yourselves and your captains or captives on the 3rd day and on the 7th day. So you'll purify every garment, every article of skin, all works of goat hair, and every article of wood. War's brutal. And wars back here in how they conducted war, this is utterly brutal. And it's hard for our ears to hear in the day in which we live. We have rules of war now. And that's not to say that they aren't violated. our rules of war in the modern world. And even with those rules, it's absolutely horrific, right? But there are certain rules that we adhere to in war, or supposed to. Like, there are certain kinds of weapons you aren't supposed to use against soldiers. Like, there's a level of caliber of round of a bullet that you aren't allowed to fire through an automated machine gun into soldiers. Um, and but there's a smaller one that you're allowed to, right? There's rules about when you capture captives. You aren't, once they're a prisoner, you aren't allowed to treat them like a combatant. So now they're in our modern warfare, when they're captured, a person's captured, then you can't be like, aha, you don't have your weapons, and then shoot them, right? That's against the rules. Okay. The rules of war back in the day, back at this time, were one people group versus another people group, one nation versus another nation, and it was kill or be killed. And Moses's point to them is, the Lord told you, I told you, the Lord told me to tell you, go in, take them out. And the leaders didn't obey that. And they thought that they had a good reasoning about who and what to save and what to kill. And it wasn't bad logic per se, except that it was going against what the Lord said. And Moses makes the point to him that some of these people that you're having mercy on, that you have an interest in, especially some of the women that they found attractive and interesting, right, were some of the very people that earlier had enticed them through the prophet Balaam's advice to kind of hook up with them and introduce them to a good time and get them interested in some of the gods that they worship and lead their hearts astray. So they allow some of the younger women to live, because he knows that people of Israel will grow as a nation, and these younger women, these girls, aren't guilty of any of these other sins that their older the older women were. So Moses allows them to live, tells them everything that you got to pass through fire, and Eliezer says as much. Okay, about like basically everything that they plundered, everything they captured through war. Here from verse 21 on, lists out like this many donkeys, this many camels, this many cows. This part will be given to the service of the Lord, and the rest of it you can keep. And if you got something that's got wool on it, you got to purify. If it can pass through fire, like say something that's metal, pass it through fire, get it clean. You don't want any disease spreading. Same with wool and cloth and things like that. You got to not pass it through fire because it'd be charred, but you got to wash it, right? And you got to let it dry and be by itself and kind of run its course out there for about a week total. Okay. So when they finish all that up there, we have this story here in chapter 32. This is about the tribe of Reuben and Gad. Okay. So chapter 32, verse 1. Now the people of Reuben and the people of Gad had a very great number of livestock. And they saw the land of Jazer in the land of Gilead. Gilead or Gilead. And behold, the place was a place for livestock. Okay. So the people of Gad and the people of Reuben came and said to Moses and to Eleazar the priest and to the chiefs of the congregation, any number of these names, right? There's a list up there. The land that the Lord struck down before the congregation of Israel is a land for livestock, and your servants have livestock. And they said, if we have found favor in your sight, let this land be given to your servants for a possession. Do not take us across the Jordan. So going across the Jordan is a statement of don't take us across into the promised land, the land flowing with milk and honey and whatnot. They have yet to go into the land set apart for Israel, as stated. They haven't gone up to the hill countries and the different parts, right? So being on this side of the Jordan is kind of a statement we're going to hear a lot of going forward. Crossing the Jordan, it's like crossing into the promised land. It's a metaphor for heaven. It's a metaphor for so many aspects of our faith. But in this case, Reuben and Gad see pragmatically, like, look, we got a lot of stuff here that eats grass. We need a place to feed all those things. And this place that we just conquered on this side of the promised land looks pretty good for that. Okay. So Moses said to the people of Gad and to the people of Reuben, shall your brothers go to war while you sit here? Why will you discourage the heart of the people of Israel from going over into the land of the Lord that has given to them? Your fathers did this when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. Those were the 12 spies, right? Went up. They didn't come back with a good report. At least 10 of them didn't. And the Lord's anger was kindled on that day, and he swore, saying, surely none of the men who came up out of Egypt from 20 years old and upward shall see the land that I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because they haven't wholly followed me. None except Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and Joshua, the son of Nun, for they have wholly followed the Lord. The Lord's anger was kindled against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness for 40 years, till all the generation that had done the evil in sight of the Lord was gone. Behold, you have risen in your father's place a brood of sinful men, to increase still more the fierce anger of the Lord against Israel. For if you turn away from following him, he will again abandon them in the wilderness, and you will destroy all this people. You guys crossed the line here. Didn't you learn the first time? We've been out here for 40 years, and now you want to do this again? I can't even believe it, Moses is basically saying. This is insane. God is going to judge us even harder, and he's going to wipe out everyone who's here. Okay, so what's the response? Okay, so then they came near to him and said, we will build sheepfolds here for our livestock and cities for our little ones. But we will take up arms ready to go before the people of Israel until we have brought them to their place. Our little ones shall live in the fortified cities because of the inhabitants of the land. We will not return to our homes until each of the people of Israel has gained his inheritance. For we will not inherit with them on the other side of the Jordan and beyond, because our inheritance has come to us on this side of the Jordan to the east. So Moses said to him, okay, Moses got a reply. But they're like, look, our family's going to stay back here. We're going to set up our lives here, but our men, our warriors are going to go before the rest of our brothers and the tribes there, and we're going to go in and fight the fight, and we won't come back until it's all done. So Moses said to him, if you'll do this, if you'll take up arms and go before the Lord for war, and every armed man of you will pass over the Jordan before the Lord until he has driven out his enemies from before him, and the land is subdued before the Lord, then after that you shall return and be free of obligation to the Lord and to Israel. And this land shall be your possession before the Lord. But if you will not do so, okay, here's the but. but if you will not do so, behold, you've sinned against the Lord, and be sure your sin will find you out. Build cities for your little ones, folds for your sheep. Do what you have promised. The people of Gad and the people of Reuben said to Moses, your servants will do as my Lord commands. Little ones, our wives, our livestock, all of our cattle shall remain in the cities of Gilead. But your servants will pass over, every man who is armed for war, before the Lord to battle as my Lord orders. So I think this little nugget here is so important for us. So when we say we're going to do something, of course, it's always if the Lord wills, we'll do this or that, right? Good word there from James. But here, the underlying idea is to this end, don't make vows, Jesus says. If you say you're going to do something, acknowledge that it's up to the Lord whether or not you accomplish it, right? You make your best plans, we'll see. But when you're dealing with the Lord and the Lord is dealing with you, there's no sidestepping God. Okay? You might get away with something for a good stretch of time, and God's just letting you, giving you more and more rope to sort of hang yourself if you're trying to do wrong when you say you're going to do right. And God is going to bring it back around you. And thank goodness the Lord does that, because, if he doesn't discipline you in your life, if he doesn't hold you accountable, then you aren't his kids, right? You aren't his kid. He disciplines his kids. If you aren't his kid and you don't receive any discipline, it tells you something, right? You aren't aware of any supernatural discipline in your life, then maybe you don't have a relationship with the Lord. But if you know the Lord, you're going to get your discipline. And Moses is really clear to him. But if you will not do so, look, you've sinned against the Lord, and be sure your sin will find you out. Your sin will find you out and me out. All right. So it talks about, the passing over, what they're going to get and all this, the various cities and whatnot, and everything that they're going to capture. Okay, so let's look at the recounting now. We're just going to overview here. We're not going to read every place they went. I do want to encourage you for chapter 33. If you look at Numbers 33 map in Google or wherever you search and hit images, and look for a good, there's 100 different Bible study apps or whatever. Just look for a good map that outlines chapter 33 of Numbers. You put in Numbers 33, Israel's journey. You're going to get a good map, okay? And just look at these different places. And you can go and see every name here and just kind of see about where they think they were. Now, it's not 100%, because it's not like there are towns there with the, like town marker that says this place is here and Israel was here for, 15 days and, 3,400 years ago. They don't got that. But there is a lot of people who spend a lot of time trying to figure this stuff out. So there's pretty good maps about where they think these folks were. Okay. So these are the stages of the people of Israel. Chapter 33, verse 1. When they went out of the land of Egypt by their companies, under the leadership of Moses and Aaron. And Moses wrote down their starting places stage by stage, by command of the Lord. And these are the stages according to their starting places. So they set out from Ramses in the first month on the 15th day of the first month. On the day after the Passover, the people of Israel went out triumphantly in the sight of all the Egyptians, while the Egyptians were bearing all their firstborn whom the Lord had struck down among them. On their gods also the Lord executed judgment. Subtle reference there. I think it's important to note, when Israel was led out triumphantly by Moses and Aaron, by the Lord, post-Passover, this is when the Lord passed over their homes because the blood was up on the doorposts. And the Lord's angel didn't come and kill the firstborn in that home. But everywhere else, the firstborn livestock, the firstborn son was killed supernaturally. People were destroyed. This is after all these other plagues, right? And it says there, on their gods also the Lord executed judgments. I don't take that to mean like they're empty sort of images of gods. I take that to mean the spiritual entities okay, small g gods, the spiritual entities, these fallen angels that were in rebellion and imbuing these various images that were given to this people group, the Egyptians, as little g gods of power, that God executed judgment on them here on earth in this time frame, and that ultimately there will be an ultimate judgment, right? That many of the demons refer to, and all the spiritual forces know is coming. Mind you, I think that there's a good component of them that are still deceived and think that they're somehow going to win, right? Like, I think that sometimes we as Christians think that the enemy, the spiritual enemies especially, well, you know that God's real and you know what the Bible says, spiritual entity. Don't you understand how this all ends? And they're over there on the other side of rebellion going, no, we're not going to lose. That's just him, projecting what he thinks. God's projecting what he thinks, but we think we got a way around all this, right? But I think history shows, and even just the Bible shows, that God's not, God wins over and over and over again, despite some short-term gains by the enemy. But this little battle, on their gods also, the Lord executed judgments. It'd be fascinating to really see. I don't think we're just talking about the various plagues. Like, I think that that's like the physical manifestation of those battles. But I think that there are judgments on those spiritual entities that went down that time frame. Okay, so the people of Israel set out from Ramses, verse 5, camped at Succoth. And they camped from Succoth and camped at Etham, which is the edge of the wilderness, and then so on and so forth. They're going to go through all these different places, right? And again, I would pop in these coordinates, Numbers 33, Journey of Israel, and look at a map. It's so great, okay? So let's draw on down here to verse 50. We're going to just finish up here with the driving out of the inhabitants, kind of what went down. And the Lord spoke to Moses in the plains of Moab by the Jordan at Jericho, saying, speak to the people of Israel and say to them, when you pass over the Jordan into the land of Canaan, then you shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you, and destroy all the figured stones, and destroy all their metal images, and demolish all their high places. And you shall take possession of the land and settle in it. For I have given the land to you to inherit and possess it. Or rather, to possess it. You shall inherit the land by lot. Okay, by random, not so random, but random lot, like casting lots. It's like a lottery. According to your clans. To a large tribe you shall give a large inheritance, and to a small tribe you shall give a small inheritance. Wherever the lot falls for anyone, that shall be his. According to the tribes of your fathers, you shall inherit. But, here's another but. But if you do not drive out the inhabitants of the land from before you, then those of them whom you let remain shall be as barbs in your eyes and thorns in your sides. They shall trouble you in the land where you dwell, and I will do to you as I thought to do to them. Obey me. You better go in and execute my judgments against them, for those people groups have sinned against me. They have high places worshiping evil spiritual entities that are at war with me in the heavens, as it were, and are trying to corrupt my vision and my plan to redeem the people of the world and to send my glory out. And they are attempting to corrupt that, and these people are adhering to that full-heartedly, fully, willingly for hundreds and hundreds of years. And you got to go in and execute this judgment. This is not something that they did one oopsie daisy one day and now God's mad. No, this is hundreds of years of stuff building up. Longer than United States has been a country. This stuff has been going down in this land. And God is coming in finally with the great judgment, okay? And he's like, if you don't do it, they're going to be as barbs in your eyes and thorns in your sides. What a horrible, horrible image, right? Hooks gouging out your eyes and thorns sticking in your side. And at some point, Nebuchadnezzar will lead them out, and he'll gouge out the eyes of some of their leaders, and oh my goodness, and lead them away with hooks. Wow, from Babylon. But anyway, so yeah, and as we're going to find out, they clearly don't drive them all out. They don't execute all the judgments of the Lord. They do it kind of mostly, but not all the way. As a result, in the book of Judges, we're going to read about constantly them being at war, not really establishing their foothold, truly establishing themselves, and Philistines and various other groups coming in there and jabbing at them and taking them down for 3-4 decades, and then God raising up a leader, a judge, and wiping them out, their enemies down again, and then coming back and forth, and it's pretty brutal. When they didn't obey, it ended up costing them much more sorrow as a people over hundreds of years. So let's talk about boundaries real quick. So the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Command the people of Israel and say to them, when you enter the land of Canaan, this is the land that shall fall to you for an inheritance. The land of Canaan is defined by its borders." And he goes on to define what that land mass is. And this is another good one to go ahead and Google, chapter 34. What are the borders that he's referring to? And then he lists out the tribal chiefs here in verse 16. And essentially, these are all the chiefs of the 12 tribes of Israel. And Moses is setting up this is his final statements. Now, Deuteronomy is a whole nother encapsulation of the whole journey, as it were. And I love Deuteronomy. I think it's a great book. It summarizes so much and highlights so many important stories and does so with good narrative. Numbers is a great book, as we've read, but it is a lot of lists. But yeah, Google a couple maps. I think it's very helpful. So, all right, till tomorrow, next day, we'll be going through, just about there, the end of Numbers. And we'll talk to you soon, okay? Till then, keep walking, all right? God bless you. Bye-bye.